The proposal. Isabella stared at the eviction notice, her hands trembling as she read the bold letters for the third time. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks to find $3,000, or she and Sophie would be homeless. The autumn rain pelted against the windows of their cramped apartment, matching the storm brewing in her chest. Sophie, her 5-year-old daughter, sat on the worn carpet, playing with her favorite doll, blissfully unaware that their world was crumbling. A sharp knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Isabella hesitated before opening the door to find a tall man in an expensive suit standing in the hallway. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his steel-gray eyes held an intensity that made her instinctively step back. Isabella Thompson. His voice was smooth, controlled. "Yes, I'm Nathan Walker. I have a proposition for you." She recognized the name immediately. Walker Technologies was one of the biggest companies in the state, and Nathan Walker was its enigmatic CEO. What could he possibly want with her? "May I come in?" Without waiting for an answer, he stepped inside, his gaze briefly settling on Sophie before returning to Isabella. "I need to get married," he said without preamble. "Contract marriage. 1 year, purely business." Isabella's mouth fell open. "Excuse me, my grandfather's will requires me to be married to inherit full control of the company. I've researched your situation." His eyes flicked to the eviction notice on the table. "You need money. I need a wife. It's a simple arrangement. You researched me?" Heat flooded her cheeks. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. You're responsible. You have a daughter to protect, and you're desperate enough to consider this." His words were clinical, matter-of-fact. "I'm offering you financial security. Your debt's cleared, a place to live, and a generous settlement when the year is over." Isabella glanced at Sophie, who was watching them with curious eyes. Her daughter deserved better than this uncertainty, this constant fear of losing everything. "And what would you get out of this?" she asked quietly. "My inheritance?" My grandfather was old-fashioned. He believed marriage brought stability. Nathan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not offering romance, Isabella. Just a mutually beneficial arrangement." The rain continued to drum against the window as Isabella weighed her options. Pride warred with desperation, but when she looked at Sophie's innocent face, the choice became clear. "I need time to think. We have until tomorrow morning. After that, I'll find someone else." Nathan handed her a business card and moved toward the door. "For what it's worth, I hope you say yes. I think we could help each other." As the door closed behind him, Isabella sank into her chair, the business card feeling heavy in her hand. She had less than 24 hours to decide whether to marry a stranger or face the streets with her daughter. The storm outside seemed to echo the chaos in her heart. The agreement, Isabella barely slept that night. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at Nathan's business card until the numbers blurred together. By dawn, she had made her decision. She called Nathan at 7 sharp. "I'll do it," she said before he could speak. "Smart choice. I'll have my lawyer draw up the contract. We'll meet at my office at noon." The Walker Technologies building towered over downtown like a glass and steel monument to success. Isabella felt out of place in her modest dress and worn shoes as she rode the elevator to the top floor. Sophie held her hand tightly, sensing her mother's nervousness. Nathan's office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Stood behind his desk, somehow looking even more imposing in his own domain. "The contract is straightforward," he said, sliding a thick document across the polished surface. "You'll live in my penthouse, will appear as a married couple at public events. Your daughter will attend private school, and all your expenses will be covered." Isabella read through the legal language, her heart racing. "What about affection? Physical contact?" "Minimal. Hold hands at events, perhaps a kiss on the cheek. Nothing more." His tone was businesslike, but something flickered in his eyes. "I'm not looking for a real wife, Isabella. Just a convincing performance. And after the year, you'll receive a settlement of $500,000, enough to start over anywhere you choose." Isabella's breath caught. $500,000. Sophie's future secured. She picked up the pen with shaking hands. "There's one more thing," Nathan said as she signed her name. My assistant will take you shopping this afternoon. You'll need appropriate clothes for the life you're about to enter. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's part of the arrangement. You'll be attending galas, business dinners, society events. You need to look the part. 3 hours later, Isabella stood in front of a mirror in an exclusive boutique, wearing a dress that cost more than she used to make in a month. The deep blue fabric hugged her curves perfectly, and for the first time in years, she felt beautiful. You look like a princess, Mommy, Sophie whispered in awe. The wedding ceremony took place 2 days later at City Hall.
No flowers, no music, just...
A judge and 2 witnesses Nathan had arranged. Isabella wore a simple white dress, and Nathan looked handsome in his dark suit, but his expression remained impassive throughout the brief ceremony. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan leaned down and pressed a perfunctory kiss to her lips. It's supposed to be meaningless, just part of the show. But Isabella felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. Mrs. Walker, Nathan said quietly, and something in his voice made her stomach flutter. That evening, as they stood in the penthouse that was now her home, Isabella caught Nathan watching her with an unreadable expression. The apartment was beautiful but cold, all modern lines and neutral colors. It felt like a museum, not a home. Your room is down the hall, Nathan said, his professional mask back in place. Sophie's room is next to yours. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, will help you with anything you need. Thank you, Isabella said, though the words felt inadequate. As Nathan disappeared into his study, Isabella realized that the easy part was over. Now came the real challenge, living with a man who had made it clear he wanted nothing from her but a performance. She just hoped she could keep her heart out of the equation. Cracks in the facade 3 months into their arrangement, Isabella had settled into a routine that felt surreal. She woke in a bedroom larger than her old apartment, ate breakfast prepared by Mrs. Chen, and spent her days exploring the city while Sophie attended her new private school. The hardest part was the evening events. Charity galas, business dinners, art gallery openings. Nathan would place his hand on the small of her back, lean in close enough that she could smell his cologne, and whisper things that made her pulse quicken, even though she knew it was all for show. You're getting better at this, he murmured. During a particularly stuffy fundraiser, his breath warm against her ear as they watched the auction. At what? Playing the part of my wife. Isabella's chest tightened. Sometimes she forgot it was just a performance. The way Nathan's eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. The gentle way he spoke to Sophie. The rare moments when his professional mask slipped and she glimpsed something vulnerable underneath. Maybe I'm not playing, she said. Without thinking, Nathan's jaw tensed, and he stepped away from her. Don't confuse the performance with reality, Isabella. But it was too late. The words hung between them, and Isabella saw something shift in his expression before he excused himself to speak with a business associate. The real turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening. Isabella was reading to Sophie when they heard a crash from Nathan's study, followed by a string of curses. She found him standing over the broken remains of a crystal glass, his shoulders rigid with tension. Nathan, it's nothing, just clumsy, but his hands were shaking. What happened? I said it's nothing. His voice was sharp, defensive. Sophie appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. Uncle Nathan, are you hurt? The fight went out of him instantly. Nathan crouched down to Sophie's level, his voice gentling. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just made a mess. Mommy says messes can be cleaned up, Sophie said solemnly. Your mommy is very smart. Isabella watched the interaction with growing confusion. This tender man with her daughter was nothing like the cold businessman she had married. Later, after Sophie was in bed, Isabella found Nathan on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, making him look younger, more human. Want to talk about it? It's the anniversary, he said quietly. My parents' accident. They died when I was Sophie's age. Isabella's heart clenched. I'm sorry. My grandfather raised me after that. He was a good man, but he didn't know how to deal with a grieving child. I learned to bury my feelings, to focus on business instead of emotions. Is that why you needed a contract marriage? Because real emotions are too messy? Nathan turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the city lights. I thought they were. I thought I could keep everything neat and separate. He paused. I was wrong. What do you mean? I mean, you and Sophie have turned my perfectly ordered world upside down. I find myself thinking about you during meetings, rushing home to have dinner with you both instead of working late. Sophie has me wrapped around her little finger, and you? He stopped, running a hand through his hair. Make me want things I swore I'd never want. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. Nathan, I know what the contract says. I know what we agreed to. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just business. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Isabella took a step closer, close. Enough to see the conflict in his eyes? What are you saying? I'm saying I'm falling in love with my fake wife, he said with a bitter laugh. How's that for ironic? Before Isabella could respond, Nathan turned and walked back inside, leaving her alone on the balcony with her racing heart and the sudden realization that she was falling too. The breaking point the next few weeks passed in a haze of unspoken tension. Nathan threw himself into work with renewed intensity, leaving early and returning late, as if he could outrun his confession. Isabella found herself watching the clock, waiting for him to come home, hating herself for caring so much. Their public appearances became strained. Nathan's touches felt mechanical again, his smiles practiced. Isabella played her part, but inside, she was screaming. She had fallen in love with him too, but his retreat made it clear he regretted his moment of honesty. The breaking point came at the Walker Technologies annual gala. Isabella wore a stunning emerald dress that made her feel like a princess, but Nathan barely glanced at her as they entered the ballroom. He was all business, networking, and schmoozing while she stood by his side like an expensive accessory. You look radiant. Mrs. Walker, said James Morrison, one of Nathan's business partners. Marriage certainly agrees with you. Thank you, Isabella replied, forcing a smile. You're a lucky man, Nathan, James continued. Beautiful, charming, and clearly devoted to you. I can see why you finally decided to settle down. Nathan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. If you'll excuse us, James, I need to speak with the mayor. As they walked away, Isabella caught Nathan's arm. We need to talk, not here. Then when? You've been avoiding me for weeks. I'm not avoiding you. Maintaining professional boundaries. Isabella's voice rose slightly, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. Is that what you call it? Nathan's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Lower your voice. People are watching. Let them watch. I'm tired of pretending. Pretending is what we do, Isabella. It's what we agreed to. The words hit her like a slap. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Excuse me, she whispered, and walked away before Nathan could stop her. She found refuge in the ladies' room, gripping the marble countertop as she fought for composure. The door opened, and an elegant woman in her 60s entered. Isabella recognized her immediately, Margaret Walker. Nathan's grandmother-in-law and the widow of the man whose will had started this whole charade. You're Isabella, Margaret said, her voice kind but knowing. Mrs. Walker, I'm sorry, I just needed a moment. Marriage is hard work, dear, even when it's real. Isabella's breath caught. I'm not sure what you mean, Margaret smiled, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. I may be old, but I'm not blind. I've been watching you two for months. It's the way you look at each other. The way you are with that precious daughter of yours. My late husband would be pleased. He wanted Nathan to marry for love. He wanted Nathan to learn that business success means nothing without someone to share it with. The will was just a nudge in the right direction. Isabella felt fresh tears threaten. I don't think Nathan sees it that way. Men can be stubborn creatures, especially when they're scared. But I've seen the way my step-grandson looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. That's not the look of a man fulfilling a contract. When Isabella returned to the ballroom, Nathan was waiting. By the entrance, his expression unreadable. They rode home in silence, the city lights blurring past the windows of his car. I'm sorry, he said finally as they reached the penthouse. For what? For being an ass? For pushing you away? For making you think this is just business when it stopped being that months ago. Isabella turned to face him, her heart pounding. Then why are you fighting it? 'Cause I'm terrified, he admitted. I've never felt this way about anyone, and I don't know how to handle it. The thought of losing you and Sophie when the year is up, he ran a hand through his hair. It's easier to keep my distance than to face that. Who says you have to lose us? Nathan's eyes widened. The contract is just paper, Nathan. What matters is what we choose to do with our lives. He stepped closer, his hand reaching up to cup her face. Are you saying you want to stay? I'm saying I love you, Isabella whispered. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the man who reads bedtime stories to my daughter and brings me coffee in the morning, just the way I like it. Nathan's kiss was desperate, months of suppressed emotion pouring out as he pulled her against him. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he breathed. Both of you. More than I ever thought possible. But their moment of happiness was short-lived. The next morning, Isabella woke to find Nathan gone and a note on her pillow. Something's come up at the office. We'll talk tonight. She had a sinking feeling that their problems were far from over. The choice Isabella's fears were confirmed when Nathan returned that evening, his face grim. He avoided her eyes as he poured himself a drink, his movements sharp and agitated. The board found out, he said finally, about our arrangement. Someone leaked the details of the contract. Isabella's stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means they're questioning my integrity, my ability to lead the company. They're threatening to call for a vote of no confidence. But you're the majority shareholder. Not until the year is complete. Not until I fulfill the terms of my grandfather's will. Nathan set down his glass with a heavy thud. They're saying I deceived them, that I've been playing games with the company's future. Isabella felt the walls closing in around her. What do you need to do? Nathan finally looked at her, his eyes filled with regret. I need to end the contract. Publicly. Show them that. I'm willing to sacrifice personal convenience for the good of the company. And if you don't, I could lose everything. Walker Technologies, my grandfather's legacy, all of it. Isabella nodded slowly, understanding the impossible choice he faced. When tomorrow? I've called a press conference for noon. That night, Isabella lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Nathan worked in his study. Sophie slept peacefully in the next room, unaware that their fairy tale was about to end. Isabella had known this day would come, but she hadn't expected it to hurt so much. She found Nathan on the balcony at dawn, still in yesterday's clothes, staring out at the city he'd built his empire in. You haven't slept, she said softly. Couldn't? Isabella moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel his warmth, but not quite touching. I want you to know that I don't regret any of it. Not the contract, not falling in love with you, not any of it. Isabella. Her name was a broken whisper on his lips. I mean it, these past months have been the happiest of my life. You gave me more than financial security, Nathan. You gave me a glimpse of what love could be. Nathan turned to face her, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Come with me. What? To the press conference? Stand beside me one last time? Let me tell them the truth. What truth? That I may have started this as a business arrangement, but I'm ending it as a man in love. That you and Sophie are worth more to me than any company. Isabella's heart soared and broke simultaneously. Nathan, you can't.
The company's your life.
No, he said firmly. You and Sophie are my life. The company is just what I do. Hours later, Isabella stood beside Nathan at a podium, facing a room full of reporters and board members. She wore the same blue dress from their first meeting, a deliberate choice that made her feel strong. I called this press conference to address the recent speculation about my marriage, Nathan began. It's true that my wife and I began our relationship as a business arrangement. That's not how it ended. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Isabella felt Nathan's hand find hers, steady and warm. I fell in love with Isabella Walker, and with her daughter Sophie. They've taught me that true success isn't measured in profit margins or stock prices, but in the people you choose to build a life with. Mr. Walker called a reporter. Are you prepared to step down from Walker Technologies? Nathan's grip on Isabella's hand tightened. If the board votes no confidence, I'll respect their decision. But I won't apologize for choosing love over convenience. The room erupted in questions. but Nathan raised his hand for silence. I have one more thing to say, he turned to Isabella, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Isabella Thompson Walker. Our contract may be ending, but I'm hoping our marriage is just beginning. Will you stay with me? Not as part of an arrangement, but as my wife, my partner, my everything? Isabella's answer came without hesitation. Yes. Nathan's kiss was different. This time, not desperate or hidden, but joyful and free. The cameras flashed around them, but Isabella didn't care. She was exactly where she belonged. 3 months later, Nathan was unanimously voted back as CEO. The board, swayed by his honesty and the company's continued success, decided that the leader who could inspire such loyalty was exactly what they needed. Isabella never did collect her $500,000 settlement. She tore up the contract on their first wedding anniversary, placing it with something far more valuably marriage certificate that meant everything because it was real. Nathan framed the torn pieces and hung them in his office, a reminder that sometimes the best deals are the ones you're willing to walk away from for love. Sophie, now 6 and wise beyond her years, was the flower girl at their real wedding. As she scattered rose petals down the aisle, she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, I told you, Uncle Nathan loved us for real. And in the end, she was right. The end deal like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales and share with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.